Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Rick Badman, and we're going to be discussing his amazing novel, The Madhouse Projects. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon, as well as barnesandnoble.com, pretty much wherever books are sold. But people, head directly to quipperprints.com to purchase your copies today. If you haven't figured it out already, Quipper Prints is the publishing company that brought Rick to our network. So, side note, if you're a writer out there, you have a book that you've written and you need help moving it, well, people, you already know. You got to head on over to Quipper Prints. They're one of the best in the business to do it, and frankly, this is what they specialize in. So you'll be in fantastic hands once you head on over to quipperprints.com today and factor in all of the ways that they're going to help maximize your creative endeavors. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure, okay? A true delight to have Rick here on the line. Now, the moment you start to do any research on his book, The Madhouse Projects, well, you're going to understand what you're in store for. Okay, now it is a fictional sci-fi adventure, truly a non-stop page turner that you're not going to want to put down, okay? Once you pick it up, you are going to embark upon a fantastic journey. Now, here's the thing. Given the society that we are in with the advancing of technology, there are a whole host of stories, of movies, of television series revolving around technology and the advancement of it. And one common theme that a lot of them have is the destruction that technology leads to. Well, this one's going to turn it on its head because it's really going to examine the good side of the advancement of those technologies, and I'm here for it, okay? Because listen, it can't be all bad. And whether we want to admit it or not, it might not all be true, but people, technology is advancing faster than I don't think any of us can believe, right? I remember growing up and the internet being one thing, computers being one thing that, you know, when I was really young, it wasn't even around. And then it started to advance, and it was really something that it just took the world by storm. Now, that was years ago. The way technology has advanced already and where we are going to continue to go is astounding. And I'm here for it. Like I said, Rick, in the novel that he has put together, is something that's going to keep you at the edge of your seat. And like I said, keep an open mind and really try to imagine and envision the world that has been created, because you're going to get lost in this. And listen, don't take my word for it. Take Rick's. It's his book. He's written it. He's done the research. He's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. But sit back, strap in, and get ready for this fantastic ride that he's about to take you all on. Rick, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest with us today. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Wonderful, Rick. Well, listen, thank you for being a guest here. Thank you for creating this narrative, because I do think, A, there's something special about it. I mean, just to have an entertaining book to help pass the time on a rainy day, this book's got it. But in addition to that, to have something that can also help shift some perspectives here about the world yet to come. I think there's a lot there to be gained. And we're looking forward to this discussion. But before we go into the book, Rick, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
I was born in Warsaw, Indiana in 1956. And I guess science fiction appealed to me because I have such a vivid imagination, and it presented some good scenarios of what might be in the future or what could have been if certain things had happened. Mm-hmm. I sort of gravitated toward Jules Verne and a little bit of H.G. Wells, and also a lot of the science fiction was on TV, even though a little bit was kind of cheesy, but still, it helped inspire me in a lot of areas.
I love that. Well, listen, without further ado, The Madhouse Projects. Tell us a little bit more about your novel, Rick.
The main character is named Dick Thurman. and he's an automotive engineer. He's been working on flywheel-powered electric cars for years in California. And then he gives a speech that they really don't like there at the university. They sort of cancel him. And so he figures, well, if they're going to cancel me, I might as well try to find someplace where they really need me. And that's when this person for the Madhouse, it's actually been nicknamed, it was an underground installation in Arizona, contacts him and wonders if he wants to work for them to work on his cars. And so, of course, he jumps at the chance and flies off to Arizona, and he gets to meet various people that are doing various things. Like there was this one woman who had graduated from Purdue University. He was in the agricultural section, and she's working with some of the giant chickens and pigs and all that, and some advanced plants. He also finds a couple of automotive engineers. One's from Germany that's working on solar-powered cars. And this one Japanese woman who works on nuclear-powered vehicles. They use my injection reactor that I designed back in 1977. And basically, I deal with them, and I deal basically with him, too. And then there's various, as I said, it's Madhouse Projects. There's various projects they work on that are outside of the installation there in Arizona. Like I mentioned, here in my home area of Indiana, they work with destroying tornadoes by using devices that are called bees, which would actually use a plasma beam system to boil the clouds out of existence, and wasps, which would actually use compressed nitrogen to basically freeze the clouds out of existence. So basically, those things could be used for weather control. And another application is they could be used to basically relieve drought situations. Like you have maybe a swarm of my bees go into the ocean, heat it up, produce some steam, produce the clouds, then the wasps would be able to condense them and have rain. So basically, my projects I deal with could have good applications in other areas too.
Yeah. You know, I love what you're talking about here, and my imagination is running wild, Rick. I want to get to the heart of something that you've already started to go into, and something that I know your book stands on, one of the foundational pieces. When we're talking about the advancement of technology, go a little bit further on how technology can be utilized to really help advance civilization and not be such a detriment as is so often depicted.
I know that lately they've been having discussions about artificial intelligence. Kind of interesting. Some of this artificial intelligence technology they've been talking about, I was talking about back in the 70s. Mm-hmm. I call something that would be called, right now, it's probably called virtual reality. I call it experienceable program units. That's where the mind would actually be able to be in connection with the computer electronically. So you get to experience the programs. And I believe that once somebody perfects that, where you can have the computer linked with the mind directly, it could be worth trillions of dollars. And it would affect almost everybody around the world. Because instead of going somewhere for a vacation, you get to experience the vacation. Like a city like, let's say, Rome. Instead of going to Rome, flying to Rome and all that, why don't you experience Rome? So their tourist agency would probably make a program that you could buy or rent, and you could experience Rome, and it would feel like you're actually there. You'd have even all the smells, and also you could touch things. You could even eat in some of the restaurants. And, of course, for those that are concerned about their weight, you can eat all you want and never gain an ounce because you're experiencing it.
Listen, I'm an avid eater myself, and that's something I'd like to try. Because as I get older, that metabolism isn't running as fast as it used to be, Rick. You're onto something there. People, I'm telling you, Amazon and Barnes & Noble, quipperprints.com are the places you have to go. The Madhouse Projects is one of the titles that you have to pick up. And of course, you have to thank Rick Badman for bringing it to your table. Now, as I mentioned, it's one of the titles you have to pick up because, Rick has been putting in some work here, okay? And he has 3 other books that he's written that you're really going to want to get lost in as well. And we'll touch up on them a little bit later. But as we continue here, Rick, what would you say was a highlight for you in writing the book? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't anticipating before you began on this journey?
Well, first off, the initial form of my book, I really wrote back in the 1990s for a writing contest. Ted Turner had a writing contest. But it didn't win. It didn't get the $1 million that he promised and all that. It wasn't made into a movie. But all I had to do was just change the dates that I had in the book, and then brought it out again. And then when it was in its final form, just add 4 more chapters to basically have it as a bridge between it and the next book in the series, which is called The Russian Madhouse, which takes place a lot in Russia. And so that's the continuity was one chapter where they're discussing about forming a madhouse there in Russia. Because in my book, Madhouse Projects, him and his wife go off to Europe for vacation on Christmas time, and they end up in Russia, and she's with some of her relatives, and they discuss about all the problems that are going on in Russia, and he thought, maybe they need a madhouse here in Russia. So the last chapter is basically about the start of the Russian madhouse.
There you have it. Rick, curiosity for myself here with this next one. Let's dive down the rabbit hole a little. Pertaining to your book, The Madhouse Projects, if you could enter the world of the book that you've written, which page would you choose to land on and why?
That's a good question because there's so many good areas in there. Like I said, the main character is an automotive engineer, and so he gets to work on his flywheel-powered electric cars that he's going to run in Indianapolis. Actually, I would use a crystalline graphite flywheel, or flywheels, I should say, and they should be able to hopefully store safely 5 to 10 times more energy than what batteries would, which means the car would be competitive with other cars and could probably beat them. I would probably want to go into when he's meeting up with the 2 automotive engineers. One's from Germany, one's from Japan, and they're discussing about their lives. As they're eating, actually one of his favorite places is a sub shop that's there and makes his type of submarine sandwiches. So I'd like to be introduced to some of these people that I write about.
People, listen, as I mentioned before, this is not the only title that he's written. Okay, there's 3 other ones you're going to want to get involved in. Now, he's already mentioned one of them. That's called The Russian Madhouse. But in addition to that, he has one called The Belt, and then lastly, Tales from Newgate. Now, listen, dealer's choice here, although I think I know where you're going to go with this next one, Rick. But talk to us about one of your other titles and give us a brief synopsis on what it entails, please.
Actually, one book that I wrote, and I thought that it would be great as a sci-fi series on TV, was Tales from Newgate. Actually, I link a lot of my other books and what I write about today with Newgate, New York. It's a city founded by people from another dimension back in the 1600s. And I basically have it in 3 sections. The first section is a fictional history of things associated with Newgate. The second part is about some of the places there in Newgate. And the third section is some stories that are loosely based on Newgate. Like I have this one man who runs for president. He's from Newgate. And he has the idea of actually reforming the economy by using something I call applied capitalism. That's where the people and the government become partners with the people basically deciding what the government should do instead of the other way around, which is happening so much right now with our government, every other country around the world wanting to control the people. Why don't have the people control the government? And so his campaign manager thinks, wow, this is dangerous because anybody could become a millionaire, and all of the people that I appeal to for funding, they won't be so important anymore. So he tried to get rid of the president.
You know, Rick, in your book, you discussed a lot of different pieces of technology. Now, talk to us a little bit more about some of those and how you think that they can be relevant or beneficial to society.
I know that lately they've been talking about artificial intelligence. I've been talking about something I call experiential programs, which could be used for the computer to be merged in with the brain so you get to experience programs. And then there's also something called video manipulation. That's the use of computer and video memory banks to create TV programs and movies. So when they're talking about deep fakes and other things, I was talking about that back in 1976. So it's not really all that new. It's just that they weren't the ones that were thinking the ideas when I was.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's trillions of dollars they want to spend on climate control. I was talking about climate control for years. I would probably use my bees and wasps, for one thing, to control tornadoes and destroy them. But then there's another device called a pumper vessel. I think Jacques Cousteau's son was talking about that. I designed something like that, and I showed them my cable TV program. Be the size of an oil tanker, and it would have refrigeration devices that would actually chill ocean water and then disgorge it into the ocean. You have maybe a fleet of 20 of these to produce cold water so you keep hurricanes from forming. And if you want, there's a device I call an ice whale, which would create mini icebergs. And you put enough of them up toward the North Pole and Antarctica, build up some of the ice. Then there's another device I call a centipede that actually would use compressed nitrogen to chill the water into ice. So basically, we could have weather control on a smaller scale by doing that. And then there's the Sahara Reservoir. I was thinking of taking out down to about 200 meters below sea level the sand from the Sahara Desert and turn it into a reservoir. You'd have water coming in from the North Atlantic and also Mediterranean through hydroelectric plants, and you have probably the world's largest freshwater lake, and it would actually lower the temperature of the climate, and it would also lower the sea level by maybe about a meter or two at least. So I could actually reverse some of the bad things of global warming through technology.
Yeah, look, listen, I'm loving this, man, because so much of this, my imagination is running wild, and this is right up my alley, okay? I know it is for all of you as well. Rick, as we start to close out here, we've discussed so much information, but is there anything that we haven't yet touched up on that you really want to make sure our listening audience is aware of?
I've been dealing with UFO technology, for decades now. And actually, I think that within about a generation or two, we could have what they now consider as alien technology. One of my chapters in the Madhouse Projects is about building flying cars that you use field displacement engines to fly, just like a UFO. You would ionize the air molecules, create your sort of surface to displace off of, and then you have your motive field, which would determine your direction and also how fast you go. So a flying car could probably do Mach 10 with no problem and might actually use less energy than what a jet engine would. And so when they talk about, this UFO technology is thousands of years advanced. No, it's not. Once we start working on the technology, we could probably have it before the end of the century.
Yeah.
And we can actually have those flying cars that people associate the future with. We might be able to have them within a few years, if possible. I've been composing classical music for nearly 51 years. I've written more music than Beethoven. But it's so hard to get my music looked at by the people who might perform the music. So basically, I would love to have my music used for the concert stage and also use my music for some of my books if they're ever made into movies. I have an opera called Peter and the Wolf. It's nearly 5 hours long, and it's really an exciting opera that goes beyond the Prokofiev, the children's piece. It's a full-blown opera, especially with this one character named Olga. If you think of Betty Davis ever being an opera singer, she'd be Olga.
Well, listen, people, can you imagine the world that, well, I was going to say, can you imagine the world that is being depicted in these novels? But let's take it a step further. Can you imagine the world that we're actually going to be in? Because I'm telling you, it doesn't sound that far-fetched from what has already been depicted. I mean, this is something destined for the Hollywood film industry and the television screen. And I know that he's already envisioned doing that. And if he hasn't been approached by some major studios yet, be on the lookout for it, because I'm sure it's going to happen. This is something that we need to see up there. This is something that we need to get lost in. And you already know, I said it before, I'm going to say it again. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, QuipperPrints.com. Pick up all of these novels. It starts with the Madhouse Projects. After that, pick up the sequel to it, or a continuation of it, The Russian Madhouse, followed by The Belt, and lastly, Tales from Newgate. And I'm hoping there's much more on the horizon, okay? Because these are books that we're going to love to get lost in. I know you all are as well. And if you're like me, you're at the edge of your seat and you're already heading on over there to pick up your copies. Rick, this has been a true pleasure. Man, an absolute delight. Thank you once again for being a guest of People of Distinction.
It was good to be on your program.